Real quick question.
Canceled. Discontinued.
Real quick question. Did you hear the rhetoric of people calling, or the Denver coach saying Chris Paul is possibly the greatest point guard of all time?
I did not catch that, but that
He said it today or yesterday.
I thought that's been a thing. I thought we've been talking about Chris Paul being like that dude. I thought that's part of the reason why we came up.
Conversation about that real quick though. No, not that dude. The greatest point guard of all time.
like
Is he? I know he's top 10. Is he up there like that?
Okay, I'm gonna put it like this because I've seen some stuff where people are like debating how great he is, and it's like, all right, who do you have? Like, are you sure? Like, and folk like they were like, are you sure you can put him in top 10? Cause you got like, Big O, Magic, Steph. Who else they had? Stockton, Nash, Kidd. I feel like I'm missing one or two people, but it's just like I feel comfortable putting him over Nash. I feel comfortable putting him over Stockton.
Wait, real quick. Let's do this. Mm-hmm. So you feel comfortable putting over Nash? You said.
Yeah.
I see that because right now, in my mind, is agree to disagree, but he's always been for the last couple of years for sure in that Nash realm. Like he's just been a Steve Nash kind of guy. Like they're in the same kind of echelon to me. But I also hold J. Kidd above Steve Nash because J. Kidd took the Nets in the finals twice, 2 years in a row, which is an incredible feat. Like I don't care what you say, and he was the man on that team. Did he have Richard Jefferson? Yes. Did he have Kenyon Martin? Yes. But J. Kidd is the man. Also, J. Kidd is second all-time in assists and second all-time in steals. And Chris Paul is not up there with those. So
him or Stockton, but like most people.
Chris Paul is I want to say top 5 in both.
That's fine, but look at let's find top 5. Look at the numbers of assists and steals these men have. Top 5 is weird because in top assists and top steals, the gap is kind of big in between those 5. It's very strange the way it works out. But John Stockton is comfortably ahead of everybody, like comfortably. But I also think John Stockton, this is personal opinion, hot take. John Stockton's the greatest white man to play basketball ever. like I've been saying this for years.
I think Larry Bird would like a word with you, sir.
Listen, everybody said Larry Bird, but John Stockton was great for a longer amount of time because he didn't get injured. He didn't have the back injury like Larry Bird. Larry Bird at his peak was better, but John Stockton was consistently good for longer.
From 20 plus years, bro. Crazy.
But I will say though, right? Because you brought up like the total numbers of like assists and steals and whatnot. Is it like, staying healthy, just being able to stay healthy and play full seasons would add to your number, even if you're not as good as like another player who didn't have as many like full seasons of like good health under their belt. That doesn't necessarily make you better than them.
It doesn't make you better, but it adds to it, right? Like stats mean something. Like being able to keep your body healthy means something in terms of like whatever, right? Like LeBron's gonna be on the top of all these stats because he's able to keep his body healthy. But should you take away somebody else's skill because they weren't able to stay around as long? I don't think so. But it's just the way it is, right? Like greatest scorer of all time, one of the greatest scorers of all time is T-Mac. But for some reason, people don't think of T-Mac because he got injured way more than like Kobe Bryant. Even though Kobe Bryant says one of the hardest players he ever had to guard was T-Mac and Kevin Durant. He puts them up there with those two. So like I think that stats of like longevity career stats, like all-time assists and all-time assists and points, whatever, I think they have substance, and I think they have not as much substance. But I think in terms of just like the most assists of all time, that means something. The most steals of all time, that means something. Just like when LeBron passes Kareem for most points of all time, that's going to mean something. You know what I mean?
So
Right.
I'm gonna make an argument. Not that like the total number doesn't matter because it does, right? But my thing, if we start talking about greatness and like who's the greatest with stuff, at
Yeah.
a certain point, right? Because the dudes we're gonna talk about are all gonna have numbers like in a very real way. Maybe not necessarily Kareem. Just I don't know how you get that number, like for your total points type of way, but like they have numbers approaching that like serious numbers. But I think at a certain point it become like it should be more about like not just whether or not you can stay healthy. Not that that doesn't matter, right? It does. But at a certain point, by the time we get to the point we're talking about people as like the greatest player of all time or like the greatest point guard or power forward or what have you of all time, I think it starts to matter more what you actually did when you were on the floor. And that would in that case that would look more at like your averages over your career. Um, which I don't remember what Stockton's are off the top of my head.
Stockton
Even though
averaged
it's
probably
stuff.
like 10
Like,
points, but like single,
well, I'm talking in this case it would be like assists and steals for Stockton, right? We wouldn't be
Like
measuring
13
like
a game
absolutely.
for his career.
So
hmm?
what?
Like 13 a game for his career. Like yeah, it's literally 13 a game for his career.
But then
That
people would go into the argument of like, but he had Malone and like they had that, but like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, you're right, he did have Malone and get mad assists to Malone, but like, when you talk about all-time great players, you got to kind of put them in like you got to kind of compare them to the situations that they were put in. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, we had like one of the greatest power forwards of all time and used him. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. Like every great every great point guard, a lot of the great point guards had great players around them, right? Uh, Even Chris Paul, right? Chris Paul has had great players around him. Uh, and you gotta just kind of look at, do they make those players better? Do they make the players worse? Do they, you know, it's a very complex issue. But to go back to what we were talking about before, is Chris Paul the greatest point guard of all time? I'm not
Um,
quite sure about that at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's a argument to be had because I still think as far as I'm concerned, he's number three to me.
Behind who?
I still got Magic over him, and I think him and Isaiah Thomas is going to have to fight to the death uh, for 2 and 3. But at this point, I got Isaiah Thomas a little bit ahead because of the rings. And looking at stats for correction, John Stockton averaged 10.5 assists for his career, and Jason Kidd has 12,091 assists for a career. Chris Paul has 10,275. And if he in the league for 3 years, I don't necessarily think he'll pass him because that's 1,816 assists that he's gonna have to have over the next 3 years. But like 600 assists per season is like super doable for Chris Paul, especially
Well,
if
you're
he can
also
stay
asking Chris
healthy.
Paul to stay healthy, which was once again been an issue for his career. But how many assists for a career just does John Stockton have? Just
Yeah, John Stockton is stupid. Like we don't like I didn't mention his for a reason because the gap between them is crazy.
I,
John
I, I
Stockton had 15,806 assists. And
yeah,
then when we look at steals, Chris Paul sitting at number 5 with 2,332. Then we look at Jason Kidd at number 2 with 2,684, which I think the gap there is going to he got to be like an assist leader for like 3 years to catch him because that's 352 assists. I mean steals that he's going to have to make up. And John Stockton is out of here at 3,265. Yeah, like yeah.
once
He
again,
was
the greatest white man to ever lace his shoes. What?
I think Bill Walton has something to say about that.
Man, Bill Walton smoking too much dope. He don't got nothing to say about that.
what
Being
Pistol
weird on
Pete?
commentary.
Who am I? What Pistol Pete? Havlicek's in the Hall of Fame.
I don't
Y'all
think Havlicek messing with the mother flow.
Listen,
Jerry West.
Havlicek. I'm sorry, it's hilarious.
He
Havlicek,
can knock at the door, but we ain't letting him in.
Havlicek, Kevin McHale.
He can knock at the door too.
But
I don't know if I'm letting him in. Best footwork in the game.
But here's the thing though, greatest prime, arguably Pistol Pete. Arguably, because that man was nasty. But
Just doing stuff.
Player, John Stockton. What did Gary Payton say? Gary Payton said John Stockton was the hardest player to guard because he was smart and he was dirty.
Hey,
All them steals in the '90s. But yeah, Chris Paul is up there. I think he's top. I guess you can, depending on how this run goes, he could be, to me, in my eyes, he can go from top 10 to top 5, depending on how this one run goes. But then, once you're up top 5, a lot of times it doesn't even matter. Like, top 5 in anything in life is kind of incredible. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, I would make the argument he probably already is top 5. It's just like the main reason he's not higher is like basically everybody else up there has at least one ring.
Man, I don't care. Derrick Rose above him, so whatever.
Oh, that's correct.
Once again, Calvin McGowan, hope you enjoyed yourself. If you are watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, leave something in the comments. You can also listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. If you made it this far, once again, thank you. I hope you got a lot done of whatever it was you were working on while listening to this. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.